Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this first session of Cyber Talk, a weekly online webinars regarding cyber issues. And today we have the privilege and the honor to have with us Mr. Anton Rog, Brigadier General Anton Rog, who will inaugurate this webinar series. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for having your time here. Thank you so much. A bit about Mr. Rog. Mr. Anton Rog is the head of National Cyber Center, CNC, within the Romanian Intelligence Service, SRI. CNC is responsible for conducting 24/7 activities to discover, characterize, and proactively counter cyber threats against systems and networks critical to Romanian national security. Anton has held various technical development positions, including software and system design. He has also served as a deputy director within SRI IT&C Central Department. Throughout his career, Brigadier General Anton Rog had operational successes in partnership with the intelligence services of the Euro-Atlantic area. Anton Rog graduated from the University of Bucharest in 1998 with a Bachelor in Science in Information Technology, and he received a postgraduate degree in Program and Project Management in 2011 from the Resmara. He is active with the academic community as Associated Professor at Resmara Brașov. His academic background in the field of security studies was enriched by attending the applicability of international law to state behavior in cyberspace course organized by George C. Marshall European Center for Security Studies in Garmisch-Partenkirchen, Germany. He was awarded Knight of the Order Manhood and Faith in 2014 and Knight of the Order of Military Virtue in 2005 by two presidents of Romania. I'm Tal Pavel, Dr. Tal Pavel, the host of this meeting. Mr. Rog, the floor is yours. Thank you once again for having the honor and the privilege for sharing us your time, knowledge, and information about cybercrime during the coronavirus era. Mr. Rog, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Tal. I'm honored to be your first in this series of cyber talks. Hopefully, we'll manage to send some relevant information to the people that are joining us in this online session. First of all, I would like to give you a presentation about cyber threat in the context of COVID-19. And after that, I am 100% open for questions, remarks, and whatever you might think. So, Tal, if it's possible for you to share the screen with my presentation.
I gave you host, so you can share your presentation.
Well, I'm doing that from a phone, but we'll see if it's if that is possible.
I can share your presentation if you want to.
Let me check. No, it does not appear. Yeah. Let me check. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No, once again, I'll check. Okay. Yeah, you have the host privilege, but if you want to, I can share you.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So as I told you before, I would like to share with you some thoughts about cybercrime phenomenon in Romania, of course, in which we have responsibilities during the pandemic times. So I would like you to go to the next slide, if it's possible.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So starting with March, we saw that all type of cyber attack or cyber operation became to be related with subject that has to do with COVID-19. And we had the APTs, but I'm not going to go deeper in this subject, advanced persistent threat, from the state actors that use the subject of COVID-19 for doing spear phishing or smishing or whatever. But at the same time, I would like to share with you some thoughts about ransomware attack, about defacement attacks, and of course about some banking trojans that affected some people in Romania and affecting somehow the banking system. And after that, I would like to share with you some thoughts about working from home, because you know that because of the lockdown, most of the businesses move their activities from physical presence in the office to work from home. And we faced some difficulties in some private and public institutions in Romania, and we came with some advices for them in order to not to be that vulnerable, to close some gates. But first of all, and in the end, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about what the Romanian intelligence service did in all this period in order to increase the resilience and to share best practices with public and private institutions and companies in Romania. But first of all, let's start with some ransomware attacks. We faced in all this period, and we are still facing these days, a lot of ransomware attacks directly, mainly against hospitals, mainly against, let's say, local public administration, public institutions that are helping all the environment in Romania to fight against coronavirus. As you all know, when we talk about ransomware, we are talking about encrypting or blocking access to data. How they did it? They use spear phishing, and not only they use phishing in general. In some cases, they use spear phishing. They targeted special employees in some institution. In other cases, they just send email to everyone in that public institution or private company, and they hope that some of them will click on the infected document or some links that move to some to the loader of the malware. And unfortunately, in some cases, those infections took place, and we had to face like searching for tools to decrypt the encrypted data or to come back from a backup. What they did in those messages that made people to open those links or to open those documents, they talked about subjects like important information about coronavirus, 5 steps in order to avoid coronavirus, wonder treatment that will keep you safe from coronavirus, and so on. And you know, the most relevant attacks took part in March, because in March was the start of the pandemic period in Romania. And in that time, it was like a social phenomenon, because no one has relevant, I'm sorry, excuse me, and accurate information about this virus, whether we'll live or die, how hard will this affect our health, and so on. So especially older people people age, let's say, after older than 55 or 60 years, they were the main victim of those as individual of those ransomware attacks, and also as employees in different private or companies or public institutions. So they click the link, and those hosts get infected. In order to avoid that, we've done in several ways, like a public awareness, specially dedicated to ransomware. And we came with I don't know, with special pages on Facebook, with public appearance and so on, with online conference with ITSC guys or cyber team from institution. And we told them, avoid opening email that you're not supposed to receive. Even when you are supposed to receive an email and it's approached a subject that it has to do with COVID, please check the expeditor and see if it's not a spoof email and so on. Avoid accessing links that gave you like wonder or special treatment or important information about COVID. Use an updated antivirus with the signature up to date. Make daily backup. And what we discovered, that in some institution, they had backup, but they did a backup on the same machine on which they had the original data. So in the moment they get encrypted, let's say like the live data and also the backup. So in some cases they were unable to restore the system and they lose all the data. Update your operating system, make sure that you're up to date with the latest patch and so on. Close the ports, use the minimum level of privileges that you need in order to perform your work, because you know, if you have a level of privileges, they'll manage to encrypt a limited amount of data. If you're an administrator, even if you don't know that privilege, they'll manage to encrypt the whole data. And of course, avoiding to provide personal data. So that was, I would say, the Romanian landscape regarding ransomware. So a lot of attack against hospital and local administration, especially public institutions that were involved in preventing the pandemic. In some cases, we managed to develop our own tool for decrypting data or to get such tools from our partners. But in some other cases, they just lost all the data. Will you please move to the next slide? Another problem that we faced in Romania during these pandemic times was website defacement attacks. So if in the case of ransomware, their goal is to get the money in order to provide the data. And I did not tell you, so I'm telling you that we advise everyone not to pay any ransom that they require for the ransomware, because in 99.99%, even if you pay the money, they will not provide you the key to decrypt the data. We advise them to have a backup and so on different machine or on different devices, in order to be able to, if the ransomware took place, to come back from the backup and lose only 1 day of activity. But moving to website defacement. Also in this case, the main target were public institutions that provide information for the Romanian people how to stay safe or what to do in case you get coronavirus, and also important information about online activities and so on. So they mainly targeted those public institutions. We deduct that their main purpose was to not to allow those institutions to send those information to the public, and also in some cases they just promote their own idea about some, I don't know, it was nothing related to COVID, for some movement that are active not only in Romania but in Europe, and some anarchist groups and so on. So in this case, our recommendation was related to, they say, please investigate your web server to identify sign of compromise, and please take measure. Make sure that you also have a backup, so you won't be inactive like more than a half of a day, because those institutions, they had relevant information for the people related to COVID. Also, in this case, we advise them to update to the latest version, to define an access policy or at the software level and hardware level, firewall and so on, server and so on, to have daily backup, and also in this case to set the credential to the minimum level that is necessary in order to be able to access those information. So if you ask me, these are two of the main type of attack that we faced in Romania in all these periods. Will you please move to the next slide? Another type of attack, like a cybercrime attack, and their purpose is to get the money. We are talking about cyber attack that are using banking trojan malware. So we faced more than two, but I have two examples for you in this presentation. More than two type of attacks of trojan malware, mainly targeting bank clients, not the central system of the bank. So their main goal was to steal online banking credential from mobile terminals, but not only. And they also done that through spear phishing or smishing. So, for example, a large category of banking clients in Romania, in 2 consecutive days, they received a lot of SMSs with links that says messages like very important information about COVID, how to stay safe from COVID. Just like I told you in the case of ransomware. So 99% of the subject in those SMS or in those spearfish or spread emails. No, in this case, it was not spear phishing, was spread emails. So they send emails to a lot of people. All those subjects, or most of them, was related to COVID. And as in the case of ransomware, also in the case of banking trojan, older people over 55 older assisted, most of them click the link and they get infected. And unfortunately, we had cases for these old people in which their bank account was almost emptied in less than 2 hours. What is important and what we tell them is that if you use an online application or mobile application on your smartphone, in order to manage your money in the bank and do transactions and so on, at least in Romania, and I'm sure that in all the cases, in all the countries that are using that, they have a system in which for every transaction they send you a notification or an SMS. And we also go out public and tell them, please, if you click a link and you get infected, please stay focused and see if you receive an SMS regarding a transaction that you know that you never did, or a notification in the application. And in this case, please call the bank and ask them to block your online operation and eventually to block your account or your credit card. Unfortunately, for the type of Trojan that we faced in Romania, the only solution was to reset the mobile device to the factory settings and to change the credential account that you are using in relation with the bank. And we told them, please avoid accessing different attachment that you have no idea about that. Will you please move to the next slide, in which I'm going to present one of the two Trojan that we faced in Romania. So the first Trojan that I'm presenting, it is called Cerberus Android Banker, what I know for sure is that this type of Trojan was not specially designed for Romania, because from our partners we found in the same day that this Cerberus Android banker targeted a lot of countries around the world, I would say, not only in Europe. If someone, does someone who wants to ask a question, because I hear someone in the back. No, I think they just leave their microphone open. Okay, so this Cerberus Android banker was designed for, as the name says, for Android operating system on mobile devices. He was quite complicated, quite sophisticated. For example, if you get a sample of the malware and placed it in a sandbox, he will stay asleep. He will not go into action. This Android banker, this Trojan, go into action only if he check with the gyroscope and detects a movement of the phone. That's one scenario. It also has embedded in different stealth operations, so nothing on the screen and so on. The only way, what he's doing, he's getting the credential of the user, and he is performing transaction in the name of the user. So the only way that if you install it, actually how you get infected with this Trojan banking, you receive an SMS with a link. When you click the link, it asks you to install an APK, which is an application that is not in the store. So if you decided to install an application, an APK, which is not in the store, that it's on your own risk. But still, also in these cases, a lot of people, especially older ones that were interested in COVID and they did not have a lot of information, they installed that application. So that application get the control of the phone, get the credential, and not only that, it is an info stealer application. And through that application, besides the credential that you are using in relationship with your bank, is still also instant messaging and from WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, and so on, emails and so on. So it took almost full control of the phone. And as I told you before, the only solution. So how can we detect that? Only you can detect that unfortunately only after the first transaction took place in your name with the bank and the money were gone from your account. And if you did not pay attention, as I told you, in some cases of older people, retired people, they send us a screenshot with their messaging application in which they had transaction one after another until their account was emptied in less than an hour. So the only solution was to reset the phone to factory settings and to change your credential with the bank. So quite complicated, and it managed to, this Trojan managed to do some victims in Romania. Another one, please move to the next slide. So Tal, can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Another Trojan banker was Qbot. This was a Trojan that was not dedicated to mobile devices, especially. So his target was the browser that we are using in order to access online services from a bank. So you know, there are two ways in which you can connect to the bank in order to do your transaction or to manage your money and so on. One is to use a mobile application, or another one is to use a browser through which, using your credential and some two-factor authentication, you connect with your bank and manage your money. So Qbot, he was also the spreading mechanism were also spread phishing, so a lot of email with the subject related to COVID. Also, in this case, we had some success infection in some clients of the bank in Romania, and they managed to still, not an important amount of money, but some money. Also, this Qbot Trojan was not designed or used only in Romania. It was at least in European campaign, and not only. We know that he also targeted some target in the US, Canada, and Greece. So what he's also an info stealer. He's in the credential and the session ID, and in the name of the client, he is also performing transaction, which from a banking point of view, are quite legit transaction, and he is also stealing the money or buying stuff in your name using your money. So these are the two examples that I wanted to share with you today. Will you please move to the next slide? So in this period, yes, thank you. In this period, we did a lot of awareness, I would say. We try to burn some steps and to go faster in raising the cyber security culture in Romania. And in order to do that, we decided to publish like a cyber bulletin dedicated to COVID-19. And the electronic format of this bulletin, you can have it from our service website, www.sri.ro. So if you go there, you'll find a Romanian edition and also an English edition, telling people exactly about those things like ransomware, defacement, banking trojan, work from home advices, and so on, in a language that is not dedicated for specialists, but for normal people that are not familiarized or they are not specialized in cybersecurity. So besides that, we did a lot of awareness at our decisional. We share with them a lot of relevant information. So we use all channel possible in order to spread information that are helping public institutions, private companies, and individual like regular people in order to stay safe from cybercrime attacks. Next slide, please. Another major thing that we faced in this period was work from home. As I told you, in the lockdown period, most of the public companies and public institutions and private companies, they took the decision to move as much as possible their activities in online. So in a lot of cases, actually, they are not quite prepared in order to have remote access to their network. And I'm talking mostly about public institutions and some private companies. And in order to implement this concept, work from home, so they face some difficulties. Next slide, please. So in order to help them, we came with some recommendation, more than I'm going to share here with you, but also these recommendations, they were targeted the ITNC structure or the cybersecurity team that are helping the company or the public institution to protect against cyber attack, but also for the individual. So we advise them that network administration should be performed on premise, even in the condition of COVID-19. We told them to find ways, so at least one or two administrators for the more sensitive part that has to do with most elevated privileges to be done on premise and not remotely. Besides that, we advise them to use VPN connection from non-VPN, or if they have the possibility to build their own VPN and to allow connection only through that VPN. Besides that, we advise them to change all default passwords that are coming with like remote desktop protocols and so on, because I can tell you that in some cases, even in some hospital cases, we discovered that the admin user and password for remote desktop protocol stayed the same after, let's say, half a year after installing that product. So it was like just like an invitation for the hacker to come and encrypt the data or to steal or to do whatever. We also advise them to create security rules in the firewall equipment, to differentiate the user as in privileges that are necessary in order to access their network. So we advise them to give to the user the minimum level of privileges that are absolutely necessary in order to perform their daily task remotely online. Next slide, please. Besides the recommendation that has to do only with cybersecurity, you know that we in Romania, we have a a good situation regarding internet speed and volume of data and so on. So at least I know for sure that even they, in this period in which they stay home, besides doing their remote work, they watch a lot of movies in different sharing platforms and so on. But still, our network was quite great, and we did not face any bottleneck and so on. But at the level of the company, since everybody was doing the job online, we told them that probably in that period they are going to face handling a large volume of data and large volume of application, and we advise them to increase their storage and so on. We also advise them to use an encrypt connection. We advise them to tell their people not to use as password I don't know, the month of the year and the day in which they are born, or the name of the pet, or the name of the lover and so on, and to use complex password. Because we've done some tests with some brute force or some password hashes, and we discovered that mostly were in the context that I told you before. And besides using complex password, we advise them to change them on a regular basis, like at least once a month. And besides that, we advise them to keep their system up to date, like module plugins, operating system, and so on. And we advise them also to make sure that they have DDoS protection, because besides ransomware, web defacement, banking trojan, in some cases we also face some institution and private company, they face DDoS attacks that made their activity, they put down their infrastructure and made them unavailable for from few hours to half a day. Besides that, you know, in this case, we had two situations. The best situation, it was that in which the public company or public company or public institution, I'm sorry, or private company, they had their own devices that they can provide to the user, and they allow the users, their employees, to connect to the main network only using those devices on which they have like security policies, VPN, and so on. So there was not that much exposure for attack, space for attack. But in some other cases, the institutional companies allow people to use their own devices because they are not prepared to give everyone a laptop or a tablet or so on. And in this case, not all the personal devices were perfectly protected with a security policy, with an encryption connection, and so on. So in those cases, unfortunately, they face some attacks using the weakest link, which was the laptop or the smartphone or the smart tablet that was used by an employee. So in this case, we advise them not to distribute relevant document on this network unless they are sure that the terminal and was a terminal that was provided by them with a security policy, encryption, and so on. Besides that, in the case of access to official sources of document, we advise them to eliminate the risk of infection with malware and to avoid exposure of those documents. Most of our concern was for the institutional organization with key role in COVID-19. And in those organizations, we help them like with direct intervention in configure their VPN, VPS, firewall, terminal for the employees, and so on. So I would say that this period of COVID, you know, say, well, it's nothing to worry because everything is shut down and so on. Well, in the cyber world and in the online world, we work in this like 6 months from now more than we did like in a year before. Will you please move to the next slide? So thank you. That was my presentation about what happened in Romania during all these pandemic times. So now I am open to question from Tal, and of course he's the moderator. He will decide whether we will continue with this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Rog, for your very interesting and enlightening presentation about the current situation basically in Romania regarding cyber threats, especially cybercrime relating COVID-19. Do we have any question from the attendees? Someone want to ask question, something?
Yes, if it's possible. May I?
Well,
may I?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, gents, for this initiative, and especially a thank to Mr. Rog for making time for this. Mr. Rog, I would like to ask your view when it comes to the subject of developing the Romanian e-government, which is obviously a trend that we should go towards as a country. I'm a Romanian fellow. And how do we process that against the, I don't want to be rough, but the Romanian illiteracy when it comes to digital and proper cyber hygiene amongst the population, not necessarily the professionals? My idea was something towards an application, a government application, properly sandboxed, because if we give the option of the regular Joe going through a web link and his end terminal is compromised, well, obviously we'll have a lot of issues. Thank you very much, and thank you again for this initiative.
So, Tal, do you think it's possible for you to remove the presentation so we can see each other? To close the share screen? Okay, thank you. So, I would say I would say that you are quite rough and quite upset about this your view in Romania. In my opinion, things are like this. Yes, it's true. We are not the country with the highest digital level of culture, and we are not also the country with the highest cyber hygiene culture level. Yeah, that's true. That's why we are, we and not only we, also the CERT and the other institutions that are implicated, that have a role in cybersecurity, they are trying to do a lot of awareness. And but the problem are like this. There are two types of CEO or the head of institution, the one that understands the cybersecurity and the risk related to their institution or to their business. And in this cases, they took they took some measure in order to raise their cybersecurity level. And and this goes also in the institution, also in the private companies. But related to e-governance, we have an institution, ADR, Agency for Digitalization in Romania. I would say that is, I don't know, not quite exact translation. And this institution, it is the key role institution that will implement all the e-government services. The way that we are going to implement these services, well, probably in the end we'll have a national, like a national private cloud, a cloud that is controlled by this institution and by some other institutions that are helping them. And in this private cloud, probably will give access to the population with some mobile application, with some desktop application, and most probably, even if you don't quite agree with that, using a browser and a web application. Because if we take a look all around us and all around the world, even in Estonia, let's say, which is one of the most advanced in that, the way through which a citizen of the country is able to access application that has to do with e-government, with, I don't know, birth, marriage, that register a company, getting your passport, getting your ID, and so on. They have all those means. What they have and we don't have. So they have like a certificate of or an electronic signature on their IDs. So through that, even the Joe, as you call them, so someone that is not a specialist in IT&C or cybersecurity, when we'll have like an electronic certificate on our ID or whatever, on some card that will be distributed to Romanian population, using those kind of security, will come as a mechanism that will allow us to be as secure as possible. As you can imagine, when all those applications for smartphone, for tablet, for desktop, for laptop, or web application will be developed, all relevant institutions in Romania will play a role in that. And what do I mean by that? Most probably, all those applications will be evaluated from a security point of view by a joint force of specialists from a public institution, in which for sure we will be part. So we will make sure, to the best of our ability, that all cybersecurity, I would say, measure that can be implemented, on which we are aware, will be implemented. So I would say that yeah, of course we should worry for attacking for vulnerabilities associated with e-government application or a website. But what I can tell you is that we'll take the best necessary measure that we know in order to make sure that the number of cyber attack will be minimal or goes to zero, even for the people that are not experienced in using all those digital means. The level of penetration in Romanian population for these services, that's another subject. And as in the case of smart mobile, 20 years ago, only few people they have smart mobiles. Now everyone in the city, in the town, or in the country, all of them are using a smart mobile without understanding the mechanisms that are behind that, but they are able to make like a video call or a call or whatever. So in time, not quite rapidly, and not all of them will manage to access some e-government services, online services, or to make some online payment. So that's my answer.
Thank you very much, sir. And sorry if I came across too harsh.
Don't worry, it's good.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Do we have another question? So more questions, please. Well, I have a few with your permission. First of all, you've mentioned several types of attacks, and I wonder whether there is a difference. Well, we are currently in the middle of let's call it a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, and in some cases, in some countries, second wave of closure and lockdown. So I wonder whether do you see a second wave of cyber crimes and cyber attacks, or are there any differences between the first wave and the second wave of the coronavirus that reflected to the cyberspace?
I would say like this. Now people are more aware of what this virus can do to you. You know, from asymptomatics to mild symptoms up to severe symptoms, in conjunction with other diseases that you might have. Yeah, that can be dangerous, but still is not, you know, in October is not like in March, because people are aware. People, they know that even if you don't have a vaccine, there are some treatments that are proved to be, in some cases, quite efficient. In some other cases, maybe not that effective and efficient. So the quantity of relevant information is absolutely and totally different from the one in March and April. So from this point of view, probably the hacker will continue to use subjects related to COVID-19, but the rate of success, I don't think it will be equal to the one in March or April. From a lockdown point of view, if we'll go into a total lockdown, like say in Bucharest or in Romania, because we have like 3,000 cases per day, which is huge if you ask me. And if you'll continue to rise, maybe not all Romania, but some areas in which the number of cases go over the ratio 1.5 per 1,000, they will be closed, because we have to keep to be able to manage this pandemic and to have free beds in ER, in hospital and in intensive care. So from this point of view, if we'll have a lockdown and everyone will go back to work from home, like massively work from home, I can bet that the number and the intensity of cyber attacks regarding also ransomware, web defacement, banking trojan, even APTs in the most relevant institution of Romania will increase for sure. So our assessment is that if we'll have like a huge second wave with an important lockdown, yes, we expect to have also an increase in the same type of attacks as in number. And I don't know if complexity will change, but as in number, yeah, for sure we will increase. It's like, you know, it's like an open market. They have a bigger space to perform their attacks.
Another question. At the beginning of your presentation, you've mentioned the first sector as the healthcare
Yes.
sector and the medicine. And I read in the previous month several cases that the healthcare sector and healthcare industry, which mean university research institutions, hospitals, pharmaceutical producers and suppliers, and are the most targeted industry when it's related to COVID-19 related attacks. And I wonder whether it's the same situation in Romania. I mean, well, is this the reason why you started your presentation with the healthcare sector?
Yes, that's the reason, because the most targeted, I would say, sector, not industry, was the health sector. You know, both public health sector and private health sector. And that happened, I don't know, in some cases, maybe they just want to do the ransomware for money, but we managed to discover and to put behind bars, not us, the law enforcement agencies, but we as an intelligence agency, we came with the relevant information, and the prosecutor did what was supposed to do, and together with the police, they managed to get those guys and to put them behind bars. So based on our information, our specialized counter-crime prosecutor, together with the police, they discovered a cybercrime group on which we went public, I think in May. I won't name it. This group or the member of the group, but based on our information, they managed to arrest all those guys, and they admitted that they are going to plan a huge attack against the hospital system in Romania in order to encrypt their data. And when the prosecutor asked them, "But why did you do that?" In order to become famous in our group of hackers. So we consider these people not to be sane, you know. So you put your fame as a hacker in a balance in equivalence with people's life, because in some cases, in 1 or 2 hospitals, they managed to encrypt some part of the data. Not these guys, but some other guys that are associated with them, and because of that, they postponed some operation. They lose some data about people that were in the hospital, about their allergies and so on. So they postponed their treatment for 1 or 2 days, which was in some cases almost very difficult for their health. So I did start my presentation with that because in this period we face a lot of these attacks, mainly against hospital. You know, some of these attacks were possible because, as I told you, they have remote desktop protocol installed with a port opening the firewall that allowed them to use this protocol, and the user and the password were the one that are default when you install this protocol. Admin user, admin password. It's just like inviting the hacker to encrypt your data or to steal your data or to delete your data or whatever, or to modify some data, which was, you know, even more difficult. For example, if you are supposed to receive a treatment with the same with an amount of concentration, and they go into the database of the hospital, in which they have the your prescription, and they modify the concentration, well, they might affect even by to the level of losing your life, you know. So yeah, the most relevant attacks were against health sector.
Yeah, and it's really to my last question. You've mentioned that those attacks were mainly performed by, you just mentioned a group of, let's call them amateur hackers, that in this case that you mentioned, the goal was to gain fame.
Yeah.
I wonder whether there are attacks that were performed by some other actors, well, not only from criminal means, but some other malicious actors.
Yes, we also face that, but as I told you, I don't have a mandate to go in more detail about that. What I can tell you is that also state actors, so so-called cybercrime groups that are sponsored, financed, and so on by the intelligence communities from some countries, they also came with a spear phishing in this case. They did not use smishing or vishing or whatever, only spear phishing against some employees of relevant institution in Romania with subject related to COVID. I can tell you that. Okay. But in these cases, we have special means of protection installed in their networks. So we were able, using those means, to prevent those employees from opening the email with the malware attachment and so on. Because we are talking about relevant institution from the government of Romania, for which we are providing cybersecurity services as an authority, as a national authority.
Thank you. Do we have some more questions to Mr. Rog? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Anton Rog, for your time and for willingness to share your sites and information or whatever you can regarding cyber threats and cyber crime during the coronavirus. I would like to invite you all next week to our second session with Mr. Esti Peshin, Vice President and General Manager of the Cyber Division at Israel Aerospace Industry in Israel. Same day, same time, you are most invited to join us. Thank you once again, Mr. Rog. Thank you, everyone, and see you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.